everyone. I'm Debbie Stokes of Three Women Voices. Welcome. Today, my special guest is a wife, a mom, and an influencer who is married to the love of her life. She is going to talk to you about life, love, and growing on social media. Now, I introduce to you Trinity Sierra. Hi, Trinity. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I am fine. I'm happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Yes,
Seriously,
and
thank you
let's
so
get
much.
started. Yes, thank you. So, why don't you start off by telling everybody a little bit about yourself?
I am just a woman aspiring to be kind of a light for a lot of other women. I have two beautiful girls. I'm 2-year-old and a 9-month-old. I have a husband. I went to Liberty University and graduated with an actual degree in fashion merchandising. Believe it or not, when I left, I decided I wanted to go the teaching route. So I've been teaching for the past 3 years, and then I recently quit my job and became a full-time influencer or a blogger, whatever you want to call it.
Okay, that's wonderful. So, I have been following you for quite a while,
Mhm.
and I am inspired by your content. I'm inspired by the love that you share with your family. So, tell us how you met your husband and tell us your love story.
Man, so I met my husband actually through a virtual friend. We I don't know. I guess we have that kind of connection where it was kind of at first sight, we kind of knew we were attracted to one another. It wasn't until a few, I think, months later, he hit me up through Instagram asking me if I had that location for wings. I had posted about wings and he wanted to know where it was. And ever since then, we just started talking, just as friends, which I think a month later, we just admitted like we did kind of had something for one another. We fasted, we prayed, and since then we've been together.
Okay, so how did he propose to you?
He proposed. He flew in, I think like 4 or 5 days before New Year's Eve. And he kind of had everything set up with my mom to where my dad went, picked him up, brought him back to the house. And me and my sister and mom, we were doing a girls' day. We had a spa day, got our nails done, went to the movies. And I came back and I was like walking to the house, and my mom and sister kind of fell behind and they were getting slower and slower. And I opened the door and I see him down on one knee in like a
Oh,
rose petal heart in the middle of the floor with
okay.
so many roses all around, lined up candles and jazz playing. And I was in shock. I was in shock, but I walked up to him and listened to everything he said. And he was just like, like, I don't want to go into the next year without you as my fiance or a part of my life. And yeah, that was an engagement. That was a proposal. And I said yes, of course. We celebrated that night with like an engagement party that my mom planned. And it was beautiful.
Oh, so how long have you been married?
We're going on 3 years.
Okay,
3 years in
congratulations.
March. Thank you.
Yes.
And we celebrate every mile because marriage is its own, just kind of Pandora's box, but it's a beautiful journey.
Yeah, okay, wonderful. So now you have a successful Instagram page and YouTube page.
Mhm.
So tell us how you got started into that and then or what made you decide to go public, put yourself out there.
Honestly, originally started because I loved documenting. I'm a writer. I've always loved to write. It's a way of expressing myself and expressing kind of like the thoughts that are in my head, getting it down on paper. And I started because I just wanted to share my story. I looked around and saw, so many mom bloggers, so many women just sharing their life. But I was like, okay, is something wrong with me? Like, how come they're so perfect and I'm constantly struggling? Like, it was a struggle. And I got inspired to just share my life through rawness and authenticness and actually sharing my truth. That's what got me started. And it motivated me having children only because I'm passionate about them and about my family. And so it started off as me just wanting to capture every moment and take pictures. Then it grew into, I can do something with this.
Okay. So now, what advice can you give to people who might be interested in starting one, and then some ways that they can grow?
So, what I always tell people when they reach out to me weekly, um, best advice is do what makes you happy, do what speaks to you. It's so easy to do what's trending or do what other people are doing and then not see the success you want. So, when you're starting out, pick three things that you want to focus on, three things that inspire you, that motivate you, that you wake up to do without getting paid for. I always tell people if you do something for free, getting paid is a bonus. Um, as far as growing, I feel like that ties into the first question. You grow based off of what you're passionate about. So if you're consistently posting or consistently sharing your truth, other people are attracted to that. There's so many people who want to grow overnight, and I don't think real growth is an overnight process. Just like anything else, you take your time, you stick to it, and you consistently speak about what you're passionate about, and the rest does its work.
Okay. How long have you been on social media?
Man, I feel like I've always I went through what probably everyone else went through. We went through Bebo, we went through MySpace, we went through Instagram,
Yeah.
YouTube, you name it. I've always been just on. Um, but on social media, I'm gonna say actively maybe 5 years per se. On Instagram, on YouTube, I've always been on it, but actively blogging and sharing my life, I want to say about the same, like about 3 years.
Okay.
I've been doing it, and YouTube maybe two, I
Okay.
think. So yeah,
So you've grown pretty good in 2 or 3 years.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm completely like shocked on a daily how I'm growing. I know when I started, I was like, how do people grow? This is just so hard. Um, but when you look at like other people's growth and your growth, you just got to stay focused on yourself. You can't compare, because what works for some people may not work for you. What works for you may not work for some people.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, it's been a blessing. But I think God has just had His hand over both of my accounts. And honestly, I just pray over it daily.
Yes, that always helps.
Absolutely.
So now, for somebody who is listening right now, and maybe they have a pretty good size Instagram following, YouTube following, Facebook following, and they're trying to connect to brands,
Mm.
what would you advise them to do to get their attention?
I believe it's important to connect exactly by doing that, connecting. I feel like sometimes you kind of want to get brands' attention without doing the right steps. And what I've noticed is you follow the brands, you comment on the brand's posts, you like the brand's posts, you engage with them. The best thing to do is to get their attention. And so what I like to do is I don't post content or post things that are always brand or sponsored. You post what you use. And through that, you tag what you're using. You mention the brand. Like you want to kind of get their attention without kind of screaming, hey, I want you to look at me, but you subtly do it. So then when they reach out to you or you reach out to them, you can say, I've done this, this, and that. You know, you go off the checklist
Gotcha.
basis. Hey, I'm just trying to get your attention. And they're like, okay, well, do you actually use us? You know, like you're building your resume.
Yeah. So now you and your husband, display so much love and happiness. What's your secret to a happy marriage?
Man, honestly, it's learning each other's love language. That is probably the secret. My husband and me, I think we kind of function completely different. He's an
Okay.
extrovert and I'm an introvert. So I
Oh,
love being a homebody. I love being by myself now that I don't have that time to say I'm by myself a lot. I do really love that. So learning the other person's love language is really the key to a happy marriage and actually communicating. So whether it's you're mad, you're happy, you're sad, you always should tell your spouse and your partner what's really going on because at the end of your marriage, you want to look back at the times that you made it known and you stood your ground versus the times that you kind of put stuff under the rug. Because you always want to go down or like in the day on a good note versus they're good and you're not. Like you
right.
just
Yeah.
always got to be honest and communicate.
Mhm.
It's number one.
Okay. Can you share some tips for couples who work together? Now, do your husband, like, is he working with you or he works outside and then does the Instagram too and
So
YouTube?
he works outside. We have completely different jobs.
Okay.
My husband's a musician, and so he travels to church or to gigs
Okay.
or to different things that acquire his attention.
Yeah.
And then he'll come back home and he works with me. Now, I tell you, it's hard. It is extremely hard because I put everything into what I do, into my brand. And sometimes like your spouse may not understand. And so like I learned photography and he learns music. We have two different hobbies per
Okay.
se. But when you merge it and you're trying to work with your spouse, what I've learned is if I can't get the photo myself and I need my husband to get it, I'll share my vision with him. I used to get so frustrated when he would show me the picture and it wasn't at all what I wanted him to get. But I understood like, Trinity, you didn't share what you expected. You didn't share your inspiration for this shot. So you just have to share it with him. So my advice to the couples who work together is always kind of understand one another's perspective and don't expect them to understand what's in your mind because they can't see it. You always communicate, you always make it known what you want, and just show respect. Respect your partner, respect your spouse for what they want, what they do, and what you want them to do for you. You just got to
Mhm.
always respect at the end of the day.
So now, how do you separate mom, wifey, and me time?
So during moments like this where my daughter's like occupied and my other daughter sleep, that's the time that I'm like, okay, it's me time. What do I want to focus on? I might hook up my computer, sit down next to my daughter, watch a show, or I'll wait until my husband gets back to probably take a bath or go run an errand, get that time alone,
Right.
because obviously you can't leave your kids.
You're right.
As far as like balancing wife and mother, I I try to do things like only a mom can do. Like only I can do for my kids. Like whether it's um, play dress up with them, even though dad can do that. But I try to focus maybe bath time with them, give them that time that requires me and my attention,
Yeah.
and then wifey time, like if it's doing one of my husband's love languages, which is food, cooking one of his favorite meals, or hey, let's go on a walk where we know the girls are going to go to sleep. It's always doing what works best. As I realize sometimes it's not going to just be you and the husband or you and the kids or you by yourself. How can you figure out and compartmentalize the times you have, if that makes sense?
Yeah.
So kind of sometimes doing things as a whole, but little pieces of doing things as a whole kind of give each person their time and make time for yourself.
Yeah,
So I hope that kind of makes
absolutely.
sense. But that's kind of how I function and separate things, either choosing a slot, choosing time to be together, but doing separate things. Like sometimes me and my husband, we might go to the playroom and we're all sitting in there, but my husband might be on his phone. I might be reading something and the girls
Right.
are, doing stuff together. Like it's all about making the most of what you have.
Got you. How would you describe the love you and your husband share?
Man, I would describe it as timeless.
Oh,
I feel like over and over, and I hope it's not a cliche, but over and over again, I feel like marriage goes ups and downs and has its times. But when I think about a love story and everything that encompasses it, I think that our marriage will go on to live past just us, what our expectations, our standards, everything. So I would describe it as just a timeless romance.
okay. If you could give advice to a woman about finding a good man or what the qualities are in a good man, what would you say?
Man, everyone's list is different now. Let me tell you that. But I believe it is so so important to make it known what you want beforehand, not make it known to the person. Because I've realized when you make your list known to the person, right,
Mhm,
they will transform themselves to fit that list.
mhm,
Versus when you make it known to God, right, and you pray for God to bring that person, you won't, at the end of the day, the person God brings, you won't get upset with.
right.
Versus the person that man has transformed himself to be, you're going to be disappointed because I guess the charade can only last so long. That
Mhm.
makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
So my advice is pray, take time to figure out what you want versus what you see. Some women see some really good men. They see the full package, but they don't really understand what he is.
Mhm.
Take time to understand what you need for you. Every woman is different. We all need different things. I need someone who is responsible or financially stable versus financially aware. Does
Mhm.
that make sense? Like
Okay, yes,
you
yes.
gotta have what fits you and your lifestyle.
Mhm.
I like my sister, she can be completely different from me. She could want a man who is an accountant, and I want a man who's a musician because it's a 9 to 5 versus a contracting job, like flexibility. I
Yeah.
love a man who can be wherever I need him to be, also where he needs to be
Mhm.
versus, okay, you're gone all day. How I'm gonna make it, like
Yeah, yeah.
it depends on what you need. Some
Mhm.
women, they need a man who is gone for 4 hours and come back home or come back to whatever they want to do for the day. It just depends because not everything that works for you is going to work for somebody else.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
make it known what you want, not to the person, but to God. Pray about it. And I truly believe that He will bring exactly what you need um, to you.
Amen. So what motivates you when you feel down or like tired or, I just don't feel like it today?
Oh, and I'd be having those days. But honestly, when I'm just like really just low, like I'm like, okay, I don't want to deal with this today. I I think about the happy moments or the moments that um I want to get back to. So like growing up, I always saw my grandmother or my mother who they had a lot on their plate, but they took moments to, okay, if I'm overwhelmed, let me go to my kids, you know? And sometimes it's your kids who are overwhelming you. But if you take a moment, you step back and you talk to them. Like I have a conversation with my daughter, and even though she's not making sense, it is gibberish. In those moments, I'm like, wow, okay, this is who I'm doing it for.
Yeah.
And instantly I feel much better. Sometimes it takes me putting on a worship song and crying and praying and laughing and going through those circles,
Yeah.
because when you're down, I feel like it's so easy to let the things that are suffocating you get to you, but you got to figure out a way to let the light back in.
Yeah.
And in those moments, I look to my kids or I look to music because I play something that's uplifting that gets me out of that funk. And sometimes I eat because I love food and it makes me happy. It just depends. It
Yeah.
depends.
Okay. What have you learned about yourself as a wife and a mother?
Man, I've learned that I have an undeniable strength. In the beginning, I was so worried. I was like, I can't do this. Like this is too much work. It is too much. I don't even know how my mom was a stay at home mom. But I've learned that sometimes you're not who raised you. I think it's easy to say, like, oh, my mom had certain traits that I don't want to be, and I don't want to grow into this person. But it's also those things that you take away from the moments, like you remember that were bad, and now you see as a wife and a
Yeah.
mom.
Okay.
Okay, I get it.
Yes.
And I feel like what I've learned is, man, Trinity, like you have a strength to overlook the wrongdoings or the temper tantrums or the whatever is going on.
Mhm.
You know how to get through it no matter what. And you also love no matter what. I think the number one thing I learned about me is in the past, before I got married, I quit on everything. You know
Okay.
what? I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with it. I was never the weak link, but I was able to walk away from things that I understood weren't working, weren't beneficial,
Right.
didn't benefit me. Sometimes I'm like, okay, this is not doing anything for me, but I stick to it through the end because I understand it's not about how is it helping me right now. It's about the lesson at the end. Uh,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
that's what I've learned. It's like, okay, Trinity, be strong because at the end, you're going to be grateful for what you're going through right now.
So now, what would people be surprised to learn about you that they don't know?
Um, my husband, every day, he's like, I don't think people know like how weird and goofy you are. I think they would be surprised that I'm not, um, I guess I'm not like the person who's serious and gun ho about things. I play way too much. I play with my kids. I laugh. Like sometimes when it's not even funny, I find it funny, because I think life is comical. I think it's something to be taken very light. Not everything needs to be serious. And I think people would be surprised that I'm not the typical mom or typical wife. Like, I don't expect all the weight to be on my husband, and I don't expect my kids to fall in line. Um, and I treat my kids as kind of like who they are. I
Okay.
don't treat one like, hey, you're this, this, and that. Like, I don't really see labels. I don't see um, expectations when I see my kids. So I think people would kind of be surprised because growing up, a lot of people would be like, "Oh, I thought you were like bougie or stuck up or something."
Mm, okay.
And I'm like, "No, like I'm the farthest thing from little black dress, and professional. I try to be, but that's just not my personality. I love to be happy versus be stressed.
Yeah. Okay. Can you give some last words of advice or empowerment for women?
Absolutely. So my advice would be, in its own way, figure out what's going good for you. It's easy to look in somebody else's grass and think their grass is greener, but it's really not. Everyone has their struggles. Everyone has something that they're dealing with. Um, Sometimes it's better to kind of acknowledge your successes versus always seeing somebody else's because you're always going to want bigger dreams, bigger houses, bigger cars, like probably more kids or less kids. I don't know. Like it's always going to be the next thing. So enjoy the stage that you're in, because there are some beautiful seeds that were planted years ago or seasons ago that you forgot about. And I feel like in this season, there's something more bigger than what you're seeing yourself. And I feel like if you just take your focus off of what you're focusing on and you see the picture for what it is versus for what it's not,
Yeah.
then you'll be happier with your journey.
So if anybody wanted to reach out to you, how can they reach you?
The best way is probably DMs. I'm super anal when it comes to that. I try to get to every message I see, because sometimes that's the only way I'm going to get to it. Or if it's like urgent, or if it's like something that, hey, I want to be able to talk to her now, email. I'm on it. I'm like checking every 5 seconds. One, because it's business, but two, it's easier to contact me when it approaches my phone versus Instagram, which my notifications are off. So I just have to look at it when I see it. So that's the best way to reach me is email. If not, it's secondary, which is DM.
Okay. And what's your email address?
My email is, it's trendpounds@gmail.com. It is also can be found on my Instagram. If you just click email, it pops right up.
And let everybody know about your YouTube page.
My YouTube channel, Trinity Sierra. It's just a beautiful channel, sharing family vlogs, sharing ups and downs of motherhood, sharing wash days, hair care, even marriage and relationship advice. Me and my husband try to dip back into our days when we were dating or courting, or even before we even met each other, kind of just share insight for singles, for young couples, for older couples. Sometimes I learned in the Bible that there's a scripture that says elders can learn from children and children will learn from elders. And so I always like to keep that incorporated, because I learn, and I also, versus being a teacher, I'm also the student. And so that's what my channel has. I'm trying to think about other ways to just to make sure I'm reaching everyone so everyone can get something away from it. But yeah, check out the channel, Trinity Sierra. It is a family channel. It is gearing and always changing, but staying true to my core values is what's growing.
Okay. And how can they reach you on Instagram? I mean, not reach you, but follow you.
Follow me. Follow me on Instagram at Trinity Sierra. It is the same for YouTube at Trinity Sierra. And yeah, subscribe to the channel.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Trinity. So I want to thank everybody for watching. You can reach out to Three Women Voices at threewomenvoices.com. You can email me at threewomenvoices@gmail.com. I'm on Instagram at the number 3_women voices, and I'm on Facebook at the number 3 women voices. And I thank you for watching.